Today we talk with writer Anthony Birch about the heavily expanded story in Borderlands 2 and also get an exclusive look with lead level designer Jason Reese on the new town Lynchwood.
Handsome Jack. This tyrant will be the end of us all.
Well, we basically thought that we needed a lot more just dialogue in the missions, basically. You mentioned that you felt the story was lacking in the first game. I think there was a story there, but a lot of it would just happen to be delivered in big blocks of text when you finish missions or whatever. You didn't often know when you were on a mission why you were doing the mission or what was happening around you. So one of the big priorities was let's just have a lot more dialogue, a lot more things going on, a lot more epic scale to the things that you're doing so you understand in the world and in the environment and in your mission objectives what the actual plot of the game is. In terms of your other question of asking, focusing on different characters, it actually wasn't that hard because it's sort of Borderlands 2. If you don't have to have played the first one to enjoy Borderlands 2, because we're starting with these new 4 characters, Axton, Maya, Zero, and Salvador. They don't know much about Pandora. They've just arrived. So if you're new to the franchise, then you'll be on the same page as them character-wise. They're basically their goal of taking down Handsome Jack is this new goal for Borderlands 2. And while you meet a lot of the characters from Borderlands 1, and people who have played Borderlands 1 will enjoy seeing Scooter and Marcus and all the Vault Hunters from the first game, it still is built from the ground up as a story that can stand on its own 2 feet.
Okay. Of course, the humor of Borderlands was a really big thing, and that was actually story-wise probably the thing that I left the first game with. I can't really remember the story, but I was laughing all along. Was that a challenge for you? Because it seems like it's pretty free flow in the first Borderlands, but I guess there's still a style there that you had to adhere to.
Yeah, it was actually, we had a lot of discussions about okay, Borderlands is funny, but how funny can it be? How silly can it get before it begins to not feel like Borderlands anymore? And so we had a lot of back and forth in making sure that for every bit of humor, there's something dark that's tempering that a little bit. So, Tiny Tina's really funny, but actually she's got sort of a dark past. And, Scooter's really funny, but he's a murderer and all that kind of stuff. But it was definitely a huge priority to keep humor all throughout the game. It is a very, well, hopefully it's a very funny game. I wrote it, so I can't say with any degree of certainty. But I tried to make it a very funny game. And there are certainly a lot of jokes. I don't know if they're all good, but there's a lot of them. And it's a game that is really obsessed with having fun. It's a game that doesn't take itself seriously in its mechanics, so its story equally doesn't take itself quite as seriously. There are moments of epicness, and there are moments of dark bad things happening to people, but we try not to be the slow sad violin game where somebody's crying over their dead husband or whatever. It's a game about shooting people in the face with the guns that fire lightning. The hope for me was making sure that you have an overarching goal in the game that is something that you care about. So we didn't want to make it like save your NPC daughter who existed before the game started and you don't really care about. We wanted to just be like, hey, there's this guy, this villain who's kind of a jerk. You shouldn't like him, now go kill him. It's sort of it's a very simple, it's not save the princess or anything like that, but it's like, it's kill Bowser, it's kill Diablo. It's something very simple you can easily wrap your head around. And so once we had that very focused idea for what your sort of the plot line that's supposed to pull you through the game is, we then focused on, what can we do to enhance that? What can we do to make Jack somebody that you really want to kill? What can we do to make his presence felt all over the world? What can we do to his characterization to make him a villain that you maybe haven't seen before, but is also, ideally kind of funny, and you kind of want to hear more from him while at the same time wanting to pull a bullet in his head, that kind of thing. And always using humor as a really good means of basically trying to reward you through the story. Oh, you finished this combat, here's something funny to keep you going. Or if you're interested, keeping a mystery about what's going to happen around the next corner, if something narratively, just to make you want to keep playing and keep fighting stuff.
So all for Borderlands 2, we wanted to offer a whole bunch of different environments, but we wanted to also take the player back to the desert, back to his roots, back to the same environment where the player began. One of these places take place in a place called Lynchwood. Lynchwood is filled with a whole bunch of different types of crazy bandits, but on one half of the side it's all dominated by this refinery aspect that is controlled by these new creatures new humanoids called rats. There's all sorts of different variants. We have a whole bunch of fun with them. They're actually pretty interesting because there's a variant that actually picks up loot off the ground. So you're plowing on through with all your guns and killing a whole bunch of people, and the rats actually come up and they'll steal loot from you and try to run off with it. And so You're playing with this weird mechanic where some of them are shooting at you, but you're also really worried about loot because Borderlands is just a loot-driven game, and so you're kind of actually more worried about the people taking the loot than the guys actually shooting at you for a little while. But once you catch up to the guys that have taken all the loot and actually kill them, they'll drop all of the loot that they've taken. So you'll see these huge piñatas of just gear and guns and money just spew out of these guys, and it's a blast. Even in there, we also in Lynchwood, we have a whole bunch of rats that ride all the we call them skag riders, and they control the back half of the area, and they actually have a group of those that work for one of our main sub-characters called the Sheriff, and she actually kind of takes control of Lynchwood in a bandit kind of way where no one really has control, but she has control, and she has a group of sheriff riders, and they patrol the town and the area around there.
The sheriff is the girlfriend of Handsome Jack, the game's main antagonist, and she sort of runs the town of Lynchwood. Like, Hyperion, basically the company that Handsome Jack owns, has enough money to basically turn all of Pandora into a paradise if they want to, but she just has a lot of fun just killing bandits for shits and giggles in Lynchwood, essentially. So she keeps the entire town in the state of constant poverty and just hangs people for fun. Her idea of justice is like, oh, you're jaywalking, hanged. Oh, you littered, hanged. Like, she's a really bad person. But when the player comes to town, she actually respects them as an equal sort of gunfighter. So you have a couple of quests that are all very, like, every good Western cliche, you know, the bank job, the blowing up a train, you know, having a gunfight at high noon in Main Street, all that kind of stuff. That's what you'll be doing when you're trying to take down the sheriff in Lynchwood, essentially.
When we set out to design Lynchwood, we wanted to make sure that we had several urban environments. We know that urban environments were actually a pretty fan favorite. They were one of my personal favorites, actually. I worked on Old Haven in the first game. And I wanted to make sure that we still had a couple urban environments that players could really go in there with their co-op buddies and not know what was going to be springing out around the corner. And Lynchwood is a perfect example of this. It's actually an old western town with a train running right through the middle of it. And you kind of get this feeling that you're back in the old days, but there's tons of enemies crawling on all the rooftops and tons of loot around all the different corners, and there's a bank, and there's a sheriff like depot and all sorts of different goodies all throughout the town. It's actually a blast.
So today's question is, what is the name of Handsome Jack's company in Borderlands 2? Make sure to save your question and watch tomorrow where we talk with the talented sound team of Borderlands 2.